Jim Allister. Mr. Allister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I abhor and, without reservation, condemn the repeated violence that we've seen in recent days and weeks. It has no legitimacy, and it brings nothing but disrepute and dishonour to the cause in the name of whom, in a distorted fashion, it is purported to be exercised. So let's be very clear. There is no way forward in violence. I also do have to say, though, that some of the policing decisions have been bizarre, to put it at its mildest, and that there seems to have been an aggravating imbalance in the approach of policing, repeated known processions coming from the centre of the city into East Belfast, and yet no appreciable, detectable attempt to stop the attacks on those processions from within the Short Strand, no adequate policing in that regard, and that seems to have been something which has been an aggravator, then compounded by the foolhardy policing actions of last Saturday. None of that justifies the violence, but I think it is not immune from criticism. This House and members in it rightly want to speak and to condemn these matters. But I do have to say to this House is severely lacking in moral authority in condemning violence, because this House is the product and the structures of the Belfast Agreement, or the product of paying the ransom price to violence that was the Belfast Agreement. It makes the job of some of us who try to counter that there should be no violence very difficult, because there is a very difficult question posed. Didn't violence pay for others? Didn't it pay for Sinn Féin and those they represent when you look at Stormont? And that's a very difficult question to answer. And so the moral authority is lacking in this House to say to people, do not engage in violence, because this House and its institutions and its denial of the basics of democracy, the right to vote a party out of government, the right to even have an opposition, are the very things which show a lack of authority in this House on these moral issues. And could I also say that part of the problem is that whereas we were told the Belfast Agreement was a settlement, it was a settlement only for some. It was a process for others. And that is part of the problem, that is continually feeding a need for further and further concessions to republicanism, and on every step of the road is marked by a further depoliticising. And those then who come to this House to demonise protesters are those, of course, who talk the most about the process and the need to carry the process further, which in their terms is more concessions to republicanism. And that is what is feeding the commotion in the streets and demonstrably demonstrating that the Belfast Agreement has not and will not work.